Hey everybody, and welcome finally to the Q&A for Star Wars Factions. So I was a little bit overwhelmed with the amount of questions I got. I got close to 600. Should have probably expected this. But I was able to distill a lot of questions because they were the same, down to a lower number. So hopefully we will get this done in not too long. Obviously this will be a longer video than normal. So one of the questions that of course was asked a lot, and I was glad that I could now address this directly, is the upload schedule regarding Star Wars Factions. A lot of people say like, okay, why are you making these so slow? Why does it take so long to make them? Another person said, why does it take months at a time for you to release these episodes when you used to release them every week? Though this person is correct in that the very first few episodes were released like almost weekly or once every 2 weeks. If you go back and look at the length, you will find your answer. The first few videos were 3 or 4 minutes long. It is true. If these videos were this long, I can make them out faster. If you guys want that, I can do that. If you want to go back to a weekly schedule, I can make episodes that are only 3 or 4 minutes long. But I think the story quality will suffer because of it. I think the series became more and more ambitious over time, and even though they take longer to make, I think the quality has gotten up significantly compared to the first few episodes. I think a lot of people don't realize how much work it actually takes to make this. These are actually like productions that go in it. First, there needs to be a treatment to be made for, okay, what's going to be in the episode, which factions, which characters, blah, blah, what is the setting, what planet, what map. And even when the map is chosen, I need to make the sets. I don't make the maps myself. However, things like buildings, items, structures, furniture, that sort of thing is often placed by me. And of course I need to make all of the units, place them there, also playtest if to see that the battle is fun to watch, that it doesn't lack too much, if it serves the purpose for the storytelling. Then I have to film it, and many people think that I only film it like once, which is absolutely not true. Filming takes several days to where, and again, I used to, back in the very first cinematic that I made, and I'm not talking about Star Wars Factions now, but the very first one that I made for Man of War, which was the town desert defense. That was a very short one, but that took me a full day to do, and the battle there actually did not last that long. I only took maybe about 3 or 4 takes, and what you have to realize is that there are a lot of shots concentrated on certain characters in the scenes. So let's say we have a battle and we have Commander Gree there, or we have ATSTs or artillery. You have to realize that I cannot film 2 places at the same time. So I have to focus, for example, on one faction or one character first, then have to stop the battle, start it over again, focus on a different character or faction or whatever angle, start over again, and then still do the stuff that I need. And it also often happens to where the first time I don't get enough footage regarding one faction, so I have to, for example, play the battle 3 times or 4 times and stay on the same faction to make sure I get good shots. The amount of shots I usually take range into the, I'm not kidding, 400s. I can show you guys this if you want. People ask for a making off video too, and I scrap a lot of these shots because they're simply not useful, or the animations of the AI was a little clunky, or it just didn't look too good. So there's that going on. Someone for example also said, there was a question, blah blah blah, how do you change the point of view in the camera without changing the time in battle? The answer is I do not. In the last episode, which was Veer's Legacy, there was a scene where the ATST blew up, and the like the factory, or like the gas installation next to it, blew up and sent all the characters out flying. Someone made a remark saying like, someone else or anyone else feel like the tank explosion was an accident that he just decided to put in the video. The answer is absolutely not. I filmed that segment 3 times. How that worked was I had an AAT set up outside the camp, right in front where the ATST was, so that he can shoot. Obviously you don't notice this in the video because of editing. And I ordered the AAT to shoot at the ATST so that it would blow up, and then blow up the canister with it. And first I had to shoot that scene and just focus on the ATST. then change the shot and focus on the explosion and the characters falling out. And I remembered that I didn't like the explosion and the characters fall out that much. Not as many fell out as I wanted to, so I had to stop, start over again, film it again, and then stop and start over again and have them falling out. So it is absolutely not true that it was an accident, and again, for just a small segment that only lasts a few seconds, I have to do the battle 4 times. Now, obviously, I don't do the whole battle. You know, I start the battle and I order the AAT to fire at it, and if I focus on that. But still, it is quite a bit of work. Then after that, of course, comes the editing, where I have to filter all the unuseful stuff out, and first have the useful stuff, then I have to order it to where it makes sense, and then I actually have to make the detailed script. The treatment I was talking about, what a treatment is in movies is the global storyline. So it's not like I start the episode or start filming without knowing what's going to happen. So it is true, though, I did give the example where the ATST was not an accident. It does sometimes happen in battles, of course, where there's a cool shot or cool explosion that I did not see coming, and that then just makes it in. I'm kind of lucky for a shot like that. But you know, from the beginning, I know kind of globally, like, who's gonna win, what's gonna happen, blah blah blah. But the detailed script then needs to be made. That takes quite a while, especially now that these videos are, you know, 10 minutes plus or something. And after that, things like music, sound editing need to be done, and then it can finally be uploaded. So I hope some of you realize now how much time it works, and also I hope you guys realize that I'm not a full-time YouTuber. This is not my job. I have school, I have a part-time job there. I mean, currently I have vacation, so I have a lot more free time than usual. But yeah, it's not my full-time job. I'm not big enough yet to where, for example, I could send in like help for people to make sets, you know, to make it easier for me to film or to make it quicker. Of course, Star Wars vs. Earth also helped in that now also needs part of my attention, where a lot of people ask, when's the next Star Wars vs. Earth coming? And since that also takes time, of course, episodes for Star Wars Factions take also a bit longer to make as well. One thing, though, of course, again, like I said, it's not my full-time job. I have a part-time job. But if you guys indeed want Star Wars Factions, you know, faster, better quality, I would actually just recommend maybe thinking about supporting me on Patreon. I don't want to sound like a douchebag, but again, if you guys like it, if you guys want higher quality and want it faster, that's the way to do it, I would say. I have the link to my Patreon is in the description down below. A few of you are already supporting me, which I greatly appreciate. And I have a few rewards out there as well. But, you know, again, I cannot be a full-time YouTuber here where, you know, I have other stuff to do as well. And one also has to realize that, for example, some people might say, well, won't you make just Star Wars Factions for your channel, right? Like, I mean, it's your best viewed show. Wouldn't you grow more, or wouldn't you become bigger with that? Even though I might get more views, having only one series that you're well known for is not a good idea, especially because it won't really help your channel grow that much. And so let's say I do get big enough to where YouTube becomes my full-time job. Often people who have full-time YouTube jobs also have sponsor deals and certain deals with certain, you know, companies, and you simply cannot do that with cinematics that are based on or already like a third-party company. So you know, it's either like indeed like, you know, support me through sharing the videos or watching some of my other content. I have really good content on my channel, I think. Or indeed think if you can spare like you know, $1 or something, please check out Patreon and see if you can help the channel out, help the series out. I know it gave a lot of you joy, and maybe the series, and maybe for Star Wars Factions you'll be willing to give something. And so with that out of the way, let's go to the next question, which also was asked a lot, and that was, what made me start Star Wars Factions in the first place? So this is interesting. So Star Wars Factions has quite a bit of history when it comes to how I came up with it. So back in the day, of course, I played a game called Star Wars Conquest. It was also a big hit on my channel, and this was a mod for Mount & Blade. And though it time-wise did play in the Galactic Civil War. You could go to all these different planets and you would come across characters from the early movies. For example, Darth Maul was in there, and you could buy clones or recruit clones. You could assemble the droids, the B-1 battle droids. And so it really felt, even though it was Galactic Civil War, the Hutts were also a separate faction. You had Mandalorians. It felt like this intermix of all these different things, and nobody ever complained during the videos, I think, of like, why are all these characters still here? Why is the timeline so screwed up? And though that was not the direct link for creating the Star Wars faction, I think it was a big factor in terms of like the setting of of having the idea of all these different factions and the different timelines in one zone. However, I would say what the biggest inspiration for me was Game of Thrones, where in Game of Thrones, and I think if you now put that aside, you can see the similarities where, to me, Game of Thrones, at least in season 1, did not feel that much like a series that we used to know, but almost as a documented like historian book or report on what goes on in that world, where we have characters where we think, oh, they're so important, but they just disappear like that, and the story continues with like reporting down the family tree, down the line, what's happening there. And you have all these different factions where in the beginning, of course, you think, oh, I'm just rooting for the Starks, or the Starks are the major player. And all of a sudden you have all these other different factions fighting at the same time, and someone getting the overhand and someone, getting, rooted out. It's, I think Game of Thrones is definitely the biggest inspiration for making Star Wars factions, where... What I like is that people... I did get some comments that saying like, oh my god, it's almost like I'm watching a documentary. And I would love it to where if Star Wars factions, long enough becomes a thing where certain big events, like for example Thrawn nuking the clones, become these notorious events in history of Star Wars factions. And things like Umbara or the Kashyyyk battle in general, where the clones went in hard, they were the upper hand and then lost. Things like that will go into history of things that people remember. That'll be very cool. Someone also said like, ooh, this feels like kind of like World War I with Star Wars characters. Because of course World War One also had a lot of factions fighting, which I thought was cool, but that was not an inspiration. I started Star Wars factions, for example, before the whole World War One, rage, or the boom, so to say, before Battlefield 1. I mean, there were already games like Verdun and stuff, but it really became like kind of like casual attention with Battlefield 1. So I hope you guys appreciate that, where it came from. So I haven't watched any episodes yet of Game of Thrones. By the time this will be uploaded, I will have seen all 3 episodes. Tomorrow I will buy some crackers with cheese, some olives, some cinnamon bread. Have a good old some crisps, and have a good old 3-hour marathon with the Game of Thrones episodes. So by this time I don't know anything about it, but by the time it's uploaded, I have seen it, so I cannot be spoiled anymore. Ha. So how long does it take to make one episode? Is the next question. Well, I pretty much explained that, how long it takes, and I think I hope that it at least appreciates people, especially the people who say, please make these daily. I can't. I simply cannot. Probably even if I was a full-time YouTuber, I probably could not. Maybe if I, for example, would have a team of set designers. Sure, mappers are of course handy too, but I can do the stuff with the maps right now, so that's not comparable. But yeah. And also, for example, to show you how big you need to be, my friend Mighty Mapper, he is now making stuff for Dplex, and Dplex is what 400,000 or something. So, I'm nearing 70,000. Not even 100,000 yet. So please don't think I have the financial aid to where I can support someone making stuff for this channel or this series. So another question I got a lot was, how long will Star Wars factions last? Well, as long as Star Wars Factions will still get updates, I will continue it, but also Star Wars Factions is not a series that will last forever. I do have an ending, but I do want to have it last for a very, very long time, and I'm talking about, at least another 2 years, maybe longer. There are still certain plot points that I have in mind that we are building up to, but what you have to realize is that what I don't do is, for example, create a plot point, and what I mean by this is like a big plot point. So let's say the false flag attack. All right, I had the false flag attack. I had that planned like weeks, maybe even months. I'm not entirely sure before. But it's not like when I come up with like an idea, we're gonna do this plot point, that I immediately do that. It's more the case where I come up with something, and we need some stuff in between, because otherwise it's going from plot point to plot point to plot point, and we need some smaller stuff in there as well to deep out the kind of like the world and the setting. Next question is, what keeps you doing Star Wars Factions over and over again? Well, I gotta say, one thing that I absolutely love is some of the comments that you guys are saying, where you really have an emotional attachment to some of the characters that I create, and this is both the fan characters, but also the traits I give to actual characters. So, for example, Thrawn, who I made, very strong, but also pretty brutal. How some people said, like, I want Thrawn to die, or oh my god, Thrawn is so cool here, such a badass. I want to see more of Thrawn. In the last video where I made Veers, I made him this like honorable soldier, where people were like, oh, if I was in the Empire, I want to be served under Veers and that sort of thing. Really is a big factor why I love to do this, and to continue it, to see where it's not only that the storyline is appreciated on a more like global, like or overall scale, but that people really love the detail that I put into some of these episodes. Where people ask, where's Goro? We saw his training. Where is he now? Question for that answer, or answer for that though, is the model that you see at the end of the Goro training video, where he has the pattern, he has the broad helmet. It's taken out of the mod, so I don't have that anymore. So I was kind of discouraged to use him again, because I didn't have the exact model. If you look at the Kashyyyk one where he's represented again, it's actually not the same. But sometimes, I mean, in Game of Thrones, people get replaced too with the actor, so I guess we have to do it like that. Another thing that I would say actually is that during one of my Twitch streams, I had someone say that they were working on like some like fan art or something for Star Wars Factions. If anyone is up for it, that it would also be a huge inspiration and like motivation to keep going. If you would actually send me fan art, I would definitely show it before an episode start for 10 or 15 seconds. So if people do that, just make sure though that of course it's like actual stuff from the series, not like just Photoshop stuff from actual Star Wars. So things like the nuke of Thrawn, or the false flag attack, or stuff like that. Veers holding up, or with his team. The stormtroopers and the clone troopers fighting alongside each other. So another one, what happened to the Mandalorian faction? Well, they are still kicking ass, and they are traveling the planets, or traveling the galaxy. Last thing we saw from them was, I think, when the pirates took over the, what was it, an Imperial ship, and they were captured. Well, of course, we also had the Mandalorian games, right? The gladiatorial games. I was really proud of that episode too. That came like in an instant, where I had that idea, where it was like, oh my god. I mean, there were of course already arena maps out there, but where I was like, oh my god, I want this like gladiatorial match between all of them. Like, I want this like free for all with all of them, and it was really, really cool. It was really, really interesting. Scripting went in there too. I used like invisible walls and stuff, because at the free for all, though, whoever would win would point his attention to some of the audience. So in order to prevent that from happening, I had to use invisible walls so that would not happen. So Did clone engineer Rock survive the evacuation of Kashyyyk? See, this is stuff that I like, where people are actually interested in some of the characters, things that happened. And my answer is yes, Rox is alright, together with his droids. And we will actually see him soon again. Not on Ubara though, but on a different battle that will happen soon. Next question is, why haven't the Sith, and this question was asked a lot too, and it's actually asked a lot in just regular videos. Why haven't the Sith Empire been showcased since their debut episode? So, this is something I have addressed in other videos, but I guess because it's not Star Wars Factions, people didn't watch it as much. But the reason is, some of the units regarding the Sith Empire or the Old Republic have been taken out of the mod, and unfortunately, because of that, I really didn't have a lot going on for that faction. I still could, for example, do only the Sith, where they're all like with, you know, the lightsabers, but you've seen how clunky the lightsaber battles are. I mean, in the last episode, I had Luke fight the other guy, and with some like cuts, I made it to where it was kind of watchable, but you could still see like it's clearly not a game where like melee combat is implemented. The Lord of the Rings mod that's coming has good melee combat, so I would definitely say that a collaboration between the Star Wars Galaxy at War team and the Lord of the Rings team would result in really good footage regarding that, and maybe we can do something more with the Old Republic. Another thing we can do is, I took a look at Gmod, Gary's mod. Gary's mod has a lot of models from the Old Republic, and so I could try and utilize that. However, I would need body actors, or I would need someone to tell me how to make it to where I can control the movements of AI, because I can't do that yet. I took a look, and for example, I can make AI characters fight each other, but it's really stupid to where I just place them there, and I place them there, and then they fight each other and not really walk around. And I need to know, like, for example, on Men of War or Armor 3, how I can create waypoints to where I can actually script certain stuff. Will the Yuzong Fong appear? That's also a question I got a lot. The answer is yes, but only if they are added in the mod. If not, unfortunately, I'm not able to do that. Will Star Wars Factions end with a divisive victory for any faction, or would it be an alliance of factions? Thank you very much for the question. I adore the support, but I will not spoil the ending. There were actually a lot of people who said, like, who's gonna win, or like, what's the final battle? For all those people, not getting it out of me. I see what you're doing. I see what you're doing. So who do I think would win in the long run? This is kind of a cheat thing, right? It's kind of like, nah, I'm not saying who's gonna win, but who I think is gonna win. I think Jar Jar Binks is gonna win. When will the Battle of Umbara finally happen? This battle has been hyped up in the series. Next episode. Next question. There is a new Naboo themed map based off of one from Star Wars Battlefront 2 gameplay. Will you do an episode on it? You mean if Well use the map? Maybe. I don't know what this means, so. Why didn't you let the Separatists ally with the Empire? Because I like it more where there are different factions, where people, for example, can have more to root for, and I feel it makes it more boring to have factions team up on each other. It's the same thing where in Star Wars vs. Earth, where people say, like, you should have the rebels or like some of the clones join Earth, where I'm like, well, we already have Star Wars people fighting each other in Star Wars factions. It's called Star Wars vs. Earth. Like, people think sometimes it's a good idea to make these coalitions, but in the end, I don't think it is from a creative standpoint, where I think it would be better to have these things where, like in the last episode, where in certain occasions, certain faction will fight alongside each other. As well as, of course, we had it where clones and rebels fought with each other, to where, you know, that would be better. I mean, even though the clones and the rebels have this sort of coalition going on, it's not like they are, you know, together with them, or like bound with each other completely. You know, they each have still their own agenda, which I think is very, very cool. Next question is, where did I get the mods? So the original mod I got for when it was publicly released, which was last year's April or March or somewhere in that time span. And then the head creator of the mod approached me and asked if I wanted to have the developers version, which is a version that has a lot more units, maps, etc. in it. And I said, yeah, sure, like that, gives me more options to make these videos on. And these versions are not publicly available, but you can see gameplay footage of this on a lot of channels that deal with Man of War and Galaxy at War. What is my favorite episode of Star Wars Factions? Also a question I really, really liked. So my favorite episode actually does stand out. I do have a few one that I like. Ooh, I'm so proud of that. For example, the bank one. I was really, really happy with that, how I did it there. But of course, the thing with the bank is that map is already called Coruscant Bank. So it is very logical for someone to go and think, oh, I'm going to do a bank scenario. But where I of course, or for example, was very proud of was how I handled it with the police coming in, the droids, securing the entrances, breaching in, the clone commandos coming in to liberate the bank. The gathering the parties, the villains and scum before that would happen. The way that they actually entered the bank without, creating some suspicion, and then pulled their guns out, I thought was very, very cool. It was a huge time consumer to make, though. Again, I had to do, each shot was a different scene there. It was to the point where I had to manually open and close the door, first of all, and I couldn't have them, for example, start outside, walk up the stairs to the bank, and go all the way to the reception, because the reception was at an angle of 90% or 90 degrees. And what would happen if I would place the waypoint there is that some of them would clip through the wall as they would go there. So I first had to take a shot where I had to put the waypoint at the entrance, then cut, then place all the units inside, change the waypoint to the reception, and start again, just for those 2 shots in the episode. But, so I didn't answer the question yet. But my favorite episode is the Jango Fett one. It is where we focus on Jango Fett hunting down the bounty hunters and the pirates, and where he eventually also meets Boba. The reason why I love this episode so much is because this is an example of why I think my series stands out. There are other cinematics available too on YouTube, which of course I just support. I think creativity is something we should all embrace, and if people have ideas for certain cinematics or things like that, I think everybody should go for it and just make content out there. But I don't think a lot of people would have thought of using Man of War, where in the title it already says Man of War, and create this almost adventure-like storyline revolving around a single character. I was so in love with this idea, and that was also very time-consuming, because for each, there's so many different locations and there are different characters. They're all very short, but the build-up for that, the set design takes a long time, and it's all because of the movement of this one character. And I really also liked what I did with that storyline, where he goes kind of into the seedy areas of Coruscant, talks to the girls working on the streets. We've seen that in movies, right, where the detective talks to the girls on the streets, because they hear all the stuff that's going on, they have all the news. And the thing where he of course gets trapped, it falsely tipped by the guy, and a lot happens in that episode, and I was really, really proud of what I was able to accomplish with that. I really liked that, and I would in the future probably also do more episodes where we focus on one single character, but again, because they're so time consuming, these will be far in between. Do you think if Juju is the head creator of the mod, added it to the mod, would you add the First Order and Resistance to Star Wars Factions? So another question I got a whole lot is the First Order going to be in Star Wars Faction? It's the same as the Yuzong Fong. If they are added to the mod, currently they are not in the mod, then yes. It is true, though, that there is a skin out there for the First Order Trooper. So what I, for example, could do is make the faction but only have the First Order trooper in there, and the officers are still the regular officers. To be honest, I don't really like that. I have a very good idea of how to introduce the First Order to the storyline, which is actually still quite far off. But yeah, since they're currently not in there, for the near future, there are no plans to add the First Order in there. If people wanted, though, people can, you know, try and make the mod or make skins and stuff. There was a pretty cool, like, skin pack released recently of, like, Jedis and stuff. If you noticed, when Veers talked to some of the Jedi Council, those were new skins that were added by somebody. I actually have the link in the video of Veers Legacy as well to that skin pack. Regarding the Resistance, the answer is no. I find it absolute crap what they did with Force Awakens, where instead of the Rebels, it's now the Resistance. I still call them the Rebels. I don't care that their name is different. The First Order, in a way, makes sense, where it's like just this like broken wing. It's almost like how, you know, ISIS originally were like the elite guard or something like from Saddam Hussein. But then when Saddam Hussein fell, they made their own really well-structured and well-communicated like group. And that's almost how I see the First Order. That's why I think it makes sense and I can accept these as the new bad guys. What games or programs do I use to make Star Wars factions? So I use Fraps to film, and I use stuff like Adobe Premiere to edit. Will there ever be a boarding onto a ship episode like Rogue One's ending or Tantive 4 Attack? That does depend on the map. If there, for example, is a good like boarding map. I'm not a mapper when it comes to Man of War. I work with what I have at my disposal in terms of maps that are already available. I do sometimes get maps by Mighty Mapper and Mythic, and then what I do within their maps is like create a little bit of set design. So, for example, they give me the whole map, and if I for example focus on a certain shot, I make things like the furniture there, unless it's of course already created. For example, in the was it the last video? No, it was the one where Rex explained to the clones about the few remaining on Kashyyyk who evacuated. So that map was made by Mythic, very, very detailed map where you have all like the barracks and like the chambers of the clones, but it just has like things like tables. So what I, for example, added there was like computer screens or other stuff that they are doing, as it would seem like they're like checking their, I don't know, their email or like checking the web or whatever. So that's kind of like what I do. In the series so far, which faction is my favorite? I don't know if I have a favorite faction. What it often also is when I, for example, focus on a certain faction for too long a time in episodes, it almost starts to bore me a little bit, and I kind of want to change then to other factions. It's also what I do, for example, is not use all of the units in a battle at the same time, and that is mostly also so that when I change to a faction that I've already done, I can kind of get a fresh and a motivational pull to where we have like this new cool unit that we haven't seen or used yet, and you know we're gonna see how that works out. It's the same thing with the Hailfire droids that I used for the first time during the second invasion of Naboo. Do I already know how the series is going to end? The answer is yes. What it is I know all the big plot twists that are going to happen, but what happens in between, I don't necessarily know that. That sometimes comes up like just in an instant or overnight. Will all of the characters die eventually? Well, I can tell you that much, that a lot more characters will die. Am I making this up as I go? No. Will I agree to make it kind of making of, like how I mount a scenario, placement of the AI moves, everything I want? Maybe. I don't know how I would do it. I have to like film the desktop and stuff. It's gonna be a little bit difficult. But what I, for example, would maybe like to do is sort of like this, almost like mini making of documentary. Not too long though, like 5 or 10 minutes. Where, of course, I do film school, so we have the equipment for that. And if some of you guys watch the looping reel videos that we did, the review between me and Ryan, I would like to do that format where we have like a gameplay accompanied with my voice, but sometimes also switching to us actually sitting there. In this case, it would just be me, because this is a one-man show. Will I kill off major characters just like Gree when doing... Yes. More major characters will die. Do I enjoy making these videos? Yes, I do. It is sometimes tiring though when people say like, oh my god, when is the next episodes of Star Wars Factions? Or do make more Star Wars Factions. Which, if people think that works motivational, I can tell you it's not. Again, this is a one-man show. I do this on my own. People, this is all done by me. So, I hope people realize that. What other games will I integrate into Star Wars Factions? So, again, I was talking about Gmod, about implementing that, and another thing I was thinking of implementing was Star Wars Empire at War, where I actually found out how to control the camera there. So, if other people still have recommendations for certain games to add, that would be great too. One thing that I loved about when Star Wars Battlefront 2 was, of course, revealed during the E3 this year, I got some comments saying like, oh my god, like they're doing like clones versus battle droids in Theed. It almost feels like Star Wars Factions, you know, where they have kind of like this timeline where everyone's was in there. And I was like, yeah, it does, doesn't it? It's really, really cool. And the old Star Wars Battlefront and also even more Battlefield 1 had this really cool like movie editor, a cinematic editor thing. And if I can utilize that with Star Wars Battlefront 2, it would be amazing to add it. I think the graphical difference between Man of War or Arma and then Battlefront 2 would be very noticeable. It was interesting too to where, because Arma 3 texture-wise isn't that good looking of a game, it really fit well to mix with Man of War, I thought. And so the difference is going to be huge with Battlefront 2, but I think with like the explosions, the sound design, everything that game offers, I think it would be amazing to have that in there as well. My main game will always be Man of War though. It's purely because of the amount of units I can use there. The scale, nothing tips Man of War when it comes to scale. Then what happened to the clone leader in episode 10? He was a trainee Goro. He was blue. Did he ever meet Rox the engineer? No, he never met Rox the engineer. And did he survive the Battle of Kashyyyk? Yes, he got out, and we will see him again in a different battle as well. And so he was actually recently, in an episode again. So it's gonna still be a while before we see him again. But the Battle of Umbara is going to focus on a few different characters, some characters that you know, some new characters. I'm really excited about Umbara because it's going to be, I'm not going to spoil what it is, but where usually if you look at the format of Star Wars Factions, what it is now, it often involves about like 2 or so battles. The Umbara episode is just going to be all about Umbara. It's like almost like this like special revolving around one fight. Well, actually, okay, let me just say one more thing that, well, no. You know what? I'm not gonna say it. You have to wait for Umbara, and it's gonna be cool. I'm going to approach that a little bit different. Like each episode, I do something different, or I introduce something new. Think about it. For example, it's either a new faction I introduce, a new character, a new planet, or sometimes, for example, like there's a space battle for the first time, or we have the Delta Squad in there. We have a lightsaber battle for the first time. Or Arma 3 for the first time. The bank one is so unique because of the bank. We have the invasion of Naboo. I think I also did something different there. The Hillfire ones, yeah, that was what was different. the Gungans that fought in the fields, things like that. There's always something unique that I try to do within each episode. And even if it's, for example, something in Kashyyyk where I thought that some of the battles might have been a little bit monotonous, it's like, okay, we have new units like the Death Trooper, or Jyn Erso who gets in there. There's always like these like kind of like new things that get introduced. Kuno, are the battles controlled by you or the AI? So I make it to where I know what the outcome probably will be, but the battles are controlled by the AI, meaning that sometimes it doesn't need to happen where some unexpected things occur. No, do I plan on ever completely destroying any one faction? So he means if factions will disappear. In the long run, yes. It will happen. I mean, there are some like minor factions as well, right? So yes, definitely factions will disappear. That's what I was also talking about with Game of Thrones, where people can cheer for whatever faction they want, and you don't know if your character's gonna survive, because it's not like those usual series out there, where you know that the main character will survive. Everybody has kind of an equal chance of dying, and that's what I wanted with Star Wars Factions as well. How do I write the storyline of each video? I actually still write it by hand. I was taught in a screenplay class that writing with hand still is the best way, because it just, I don't know, it keeps you active, it keeps you going, instead of like this blank stare at the screen while your hands like tap away at the keyboard. How long does the mod exist? The mod exists, I think, since last year, March or May. Konoa, do I enjoy doing all the Star Wars Factions, considering all the editing you have to do and the time put into it? Yes. Of course, and what motivates me are those comments of you guys saying like, oh my god, like I love this character, are we gonna see this character back, I love the storyline here. It's just where the storyline itself is really going to impact people watching. That's something I love, and I have like things planned for certain characters that I think like, ooh, like the sadness like that people are gonna feel, or like the satisfaction. It's just, I can't wait to see those reactions. I mean, it sounds really really terrible, but the fact that so many people said things like, oh my god, I felt so sorry for the clones, when like I talked about how they burned up inside, or their armors melted, like how that made their skin crawl, really like motivated me. I was really happy with that what I wrote made such an impact on people. That was really happy about that. About the story, how do I come up with the stories? Can I make a book out of Star Wars Factions? Oh, so make a book. So listen, what I understand is because people said in the comments last time, where there's this guy apparently called Generation Tech. I never heard of him. I looked him up, and he also does like storylines of like Star Wars versus Earth. He does it in a modern setting though. What he does, I think, is just like he tells the story, or he writes it out, and he has like photos, or like Photoshop things on the background. Would people like that? Would people like watch like videos that I make where it's just me telling a story and like having some like photos or screenshots in the background? Because if that's the case, then will I be able to like make these episodes a lot quicker and a lot easier. And it would even be like to the case where I could write the story better, because some people say like, okay, some things don't make sense in the story, but people have to realize that I'm limited to what is able, or what I can do in the game, right? So some people were really anal about the strength of the Star Wars, of the Star Destroyers in like the game, but I you have to realize I'm playing Homeworld. I need to abide by their rules, how strong they are in the game. The actual Star Wars rules or laws don't apply in this, because I'm limited to the game that I'm recording it on. If I would do just a story, I would not have to deal with that. Now, I don't think I should change Star Wars Factions into a series where I just make the whole story in a thing that I read with pictures. But what I for example could do is make a side story, and I will probably start out small, maybe 2-3-parter, 10, maybe 20 minutes each, of me reading something that, for example, occurred during Star Wars Factions. So, for example, we could do something in a battle. We can do some, follow a clone during the Battle of Kashyyyk, or an Imperial Stormtrooper during that whole siege in Kashyyyk. Something during the False Flag attack. One of the Darth Vader's Imperial Stormtroopers, who was in there, who actually then attacked Geonosians over there. Or it could even be more deep in that, for example, we follow a civilian during the Coruscant riots. That was also another episode I was really proud of, the Coruscant riots. Because, again, it was Man of War. You have all these, like, warring factions. I was like, well, why not have, like, the rioting citizens? So, if people are up for that, I might actually, like, look into that. Where I think... The thing is, I'm not good with, like, Photoshop and stuff, so I'm not entirely sure how that would work. Will I make a crossover between Star Wars Factions and Star Wars vs. Earth? The answer is no. Star Wars vs. Earth is completely separate. It is also not to be meant as serious as Star Wars Factions. There's a lot of hints to Star Wars vs. Earth where it's kind of like a joke. Well, it's not a joke, but it's like, it's more comedic, where there's Hail Yoda. In the last episode, I got the Hail Yoda flag made by Mighty Mapper. Order 6666. And the next episode also will have something funny regarding the Gungans. We're almost done. Hey Kano, I was wondering if you have a bias towards a specific faction or if you like all the factions equally. I like all the factions equally. I sometimes get the dumbest comments saying like, oh my god, why do you prefer the clones, or why do you prefer the rebels or the Imperials, blah blah blah. I literally get all these comments whenever I let a faction win a battle. For example, there are some people who say that I always let the rebels or the Republic win, never the Imperials. Go back to the first few episodes of Star Wars factions, and you will see a lot of Imperial victories, and you will also see comments saying like, oh my god, why can't the rebels win a bit more? And then also, the people saying like, oh my god, all these clones always die, blah blah blah. If you are afraid of if you don't like clone slaughters, you will also not like Umbara. Let me just tell you that much. So yeah, no, even though I do like have a certain factions win, I don't have necessarily a bias towards one, but of course I do have the thing where like, okay, these are the good guys, these are bad guys, I'm going to have it pull to this direction. What direction that is, of course, I will not spoil. What do we have here? Do I make the maps by myself? And if no, where do I find the maps? No, so I make the sets. I do not make the maps myself, and I get the maps from either in the mod themselves, or so I get them from Mythic or Mighty Mapper. One of the mods that you could already see was the Utapau that was shortly previewed in one of the previous episodes, and Mythic gave me the Republic Outpost, and he also emailed me the Imperial outpost or the Imperial ship, but I haven't really found a use for that yet, so we'll see that in the future. Voice acting of characters, is it a possibility during the series? I don't think so. First of all, in Man of War you cannot really change, like you don't really have the mouse moving, animations are very limited, and of course there's also the issue where I would have to have voice actors for all these different characters. What you also will end up with is, for example, clones who sound strange because they don't sound like that actor that does Jango Fett. So I don't think voice acting for this series in particular would really, like, be a good idea. It also probably would make it even longer to make because I have to wait for certain actors to send in stuff. Also, of course, is mic quality. Let's say their mic quality is really bad. Let's say like, hey, I want to join like Star Wars factions. I want to record a line, and their mic quality is really shitty. I have to like kind of say like, hey, listen, I know you recorded this, but I can't use this. Okay, I don't know. When, not if, but when will we see the return of Delta Team or Tiberzan, and lastly, will you include HK-47? HK-47, I will include if he's added to the mod. Delta Team, very soon. Very soon. That was a little ominous. Anyway, what made you use Man of War to mainly produce factions? Oh, that's an easy question. So I made, of course, cinematics before with Arma. The very first sort of like cinematic thing I did on my channel ever was Predator Wars. Then, of course, what became a bigger thing was Raptor Wars. And then after that, I started doing cinematics, regular cinematics with Man of War because I saw similarities to Arma, but there were things I could do here that I could not do in Arma. I could have bigger battles. The AI was a lot more responsive, so the actions or the battles looked a lot more action-packed. And so I just did regular cinematics regarding World War II fights. And when I saw that there was a Star Wars mod coming, of course, I wanted to do battles or cinematics with that. But if people remember, when the Star Wars mod was available and there was only like a preview or a demo version available on Steam, I'd had this series called like what was it called? Jesus Christ. Man of Madness or something? Man of War? No, I don't know. But it was like this setup where it was like Epic Arma, but it was in Man of War. It didn't really work too well. And I was also like, well, if I make the cinematics, I don't want this like all these like battles that don't have connection, and if I could create this like epic storyline, that would be amazing. And again, we're like 25 episodes further, you know, and it's just it has escalated into this huge series, and I'm really, really thankful and really glad to that happen. And of course, then when the Star Wars mod was released for Arma 3, you know, it was, but of course that I would also implement that in a way into the series. Why don't I have others help me with Star Wars factions? Simply because I cannot compensate them. Why do I use Stormtroopers and other faction trooper variants in environments that do not fit their role and vehicles that also don't fit that specific role? I would like a clarification on that. Because, well, I decide what the timeline is, and I have all the characters together, and one thing what I absolutely hate, and people have asked, for example, why don't I do like Stormtrooper or Clone Trooper like Legions that are all the same? That's so boring. That's so boring. If all of the characters look like each other, it will be like I'm playing the first Rome Total War, where all of the characters in the army are literally the same guy. I mean, I know that's kind of the point because they're clones, so it means that they all look the same. But God, do I find it boring having all of the characters having the same like armor. So I'd like to spice things up with adding a bit of variation in it. So that's the reason. Final question, people. Am I going to have multiple endings for each faction near the end of the series? Multiple endings. I don't know what you mean, but no, there's gonna be one ending. And people, with that, whew, that was a long. I don't know how long it was, but a long episode. I hope you guys liked it. I hope you enjoyed it. Next episode, we're finally gonna get Umbara. It's been hyped up for a long time. I hope you guys will like it. It's gonna be an action-packed episode. Clones are gonna be the main focus. I hope you guys like this this Q&A episode. Again, thank you so much for all the support. You know, throughout the 1.5 year that this series now exists. We're gonna go even bigger. Don't forget to share it with your friends. Tell people about it. Tell Star Wars fans. And you know, keep watching the story. It's gonna be even more crazy. On a final note, if people have been watching, you might have noticed that there's a certain question that I did not answer that was asked during the Q&A. I'm not going to spoil what it is, or I'm not going to say what it is. But the reason for that is because answering that or not answering that will be a major spoiler of what is going to happen. So you can do some homework yourself and like go through all the 500 and something comments to figure out what I'm talking about. But if you're thinking like, oh, I asked this question, why didn't he not answer it? There you go. I hope that having this question will actually tell you or give you a little bit of an answer to what you asked for. But I can't answer it now because that will just like ruin something that will happen. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time.